Well, we're less than a week away from the Final Four in Omaha. Daniel and Mick with you here for another episode, a little mini episode, midweek, 6 rotations for you on this Friday afternoon. And Mick, regardless of your time zone, you got 12 hours straight of volleyball. And if I calculated correctly, I don't think there were many minutes without any live volleyball action from 11 a.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. What a whale of a regional semifinal day. We had a couple great 5-setters. You were in Austin. Is that where you want to start, or do you want to kind of pick across a couple of these upsets?
Well, we can start wherever you like. I'm just glad that I've got a padded chair to sit in because I was 6 hours on a hard wooden bench, and whoa, that was kind of hard on me, but I enjoyed the competition.
And yet we are set for 4 regional finals on Saturday. And so before we dissect each region, I think the easiest way to just go through the regional finals time-wise, as well as it starts at 4 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. So it's funny, a lot of people complaining that they had work in the middle of the day, and why would you have it during the day? I'm a little surprised that the first game is so late. And then 6 o'clock Eastern after the Louisville, Oregon, you get Ohio State against Texas, round 3 between them two. Pittsburgh, Wisconsin, just 2 hours after that at 8. And then it wraps at 10 o'clock, all on the U with Stanford and San Diego. I'm going to sit here a little cocky today with that San Diego call. How you feeling about your Wildcats?
Yeah, not sure about that. I see on the internet I'm buying people steaks and all kinds of things. So, but I do know what the numbers say. The numbers say that the top 4 teams include both Stanford and USD. And that's unfortunate in one way because one of those teams is not going to go. And their numbers are phenomenal. When you look at things that are important, and points scored are important. And, there's only 2 teams left that score under 18 points per set. The top seeds Texas, they're at a really high number, 18.5. Stanford's at 18.7. USD is at 18.1. Only Louisville and help me, Pittsburgh are under that number. Everybody else is over 18. And then if you look at differentials, the top 4 teams are still Texas, Louisville, Stanford, and USD. So that's what the numbers say. Now, you got to play the games. And that's what happened when we saw in Austin, the first match. Minnesota comes out and they look like they're going to win 3-0.
That was the theme on Thursday, wasn't it? Same thing happened with the Nebraska Huskers.
I felt like Ohio State was tentative. They seemed to not be able to find themselves. And then you know what happened? The Warrior, Londot, comes on and she takes the team on her back and she literally bombs Minnesota. Just, they couldn't stop her. She hit balls left, right, falling forward, every which way. She was just a beast, and hats off to her. She really carried the team in that match, and Minnesota didn't have an answer. Langford, the left side for Minnesota, who has the ability to raise to that level, just didn't seem to have the velocity that she normally has had. And the middle struggled for Minnesota. And eventually attacking middle helped Ohio State quite a bit in that match. And they came out going up. So Ohio State's feeling pretty good about themselves. Londot did walk out of the gym with a cast on her foot. So I think she's still having trouble like she did last year with that foot, but it's not going to stop her from playing.
Well, let's remind the folks, if you haven't looked at the stats, Emily Londot, 29 kills on 50 swings. That's the most by a Big Ten player all season in any match, let alone a 4-setter. She hit 500 with just 4 errors. Those 29 kills, more than she had in the 2 matches against Texas combined back on August 26th. and 27th. She had 14 in each. Texas swept Ohio State on opening day. I'm sure you remember, reminding the folks, and Texas won in 4 the next day in Columbus. This will obviously be a rematch reversed as we walk you through Austin, because then Texas looked very, 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 very strong in the first set. They were up 11-0 against Marquette. Golden Eagles put up a fight, though, at the end. Walk me through the third and fourth sets.
Well, actually, no panic at all by Marquette. Maybe only one player really felt odd, but the coach did not panic. The team stayed true to what they wanted to do. They couldn't really get it going till the start of the third set, and then they did the one thing you have to do if you're going to beat Texas. You have to play ahead. They got out to a 3 or 4 point lead early in that set. Running behind really was positive for them. They scored behind, they scored in the middle, surprisingly. And they passed well, but they just served nails, and they got that third set going away. Texas, though, to give them credit, did not let them get ahead in the fourth set. They came right out on top, did very well with their first 2 or 3 rotations. They got the lead, and then the closest Marquette could get was about 4 points, and then they just couldn't bridge that gap. Playing behind against Texas is just death.
Yeah, 25-17 in that final set. Eggleston had 15 kills, Skinner with 11, but the middles were really bombing. Asia O'Neal had a good 9 for 18. Phillips as
really
well.
Good. Yeah.
Just one error for Molly Phillips in that one. So from 1-3 seed to the other, and now we can talk about the morning match. Be honest with me, Mick. What percentage of our viewing audience do you think was watching this Oregon-Nebraska match from bed to start? Because I was in there at 8 in the morning.
Well, my wife and I were watching it on the bleachers as we were in Texas. We watched the Texas warm-up, and we watched the Oregon match on our iPads. And then we had a whole group of people get behind us watching the match from behind us while we were at the early morning match of Minnesota and Ohio State. So that was quite the match. But let's put some stats to that. Oregon scores 18.1 points per set. It is not surprising that they were able to outscore Nebraska. Yet
it's surprising that they were able to look so good after getting wiped away in the first set. And a lot of people can make the time zone excuse, but I'm not really buying that for a group of 18 to 23-year-olds. They were up and ready. You know, you're watching Nebraska look like the much better team, and then you get the narrowest margins, and it's the same way Nebraska escaped Kansas last week, and they literally, you know, the micromillimeter that the ball missed the antenna by against the Jayhawks worked in the favor of Oregon in a couple very tight calls. They won the second set 26-24, but then Nebraska storms back to win the third and has 4 match points in the fourth. Were you able to watch these?
Yes, I was. And, you know, Oregon, for some reason, was able to survive that. You know, Nebraska did about everything they could do, I thought, to win that match. And yet it just didn't go in their favor. And sometimes that's the way it works. And that's why we play the matches. But Oregon, and hand it to the committee that picked Oregon 10th when they were doing the top 10. We all were shaking our heads on that one, but they saw Oregon's production continue to come up during the end of the year, and they had that one right. And Oregon produced. You know, they did it. Now we have to see what they can do on Saturday.
Well, when you walk your way through what happened in the third set, and then you see what happened in the fourth set in that one, and I can kind of give you folks a little bit of a play-by-play according to the stats itself, because it starts with Oregon 24-22, and then Nebraska chips their way back. Launstein gets a kill. Collier makes a mistake, and our girl Mimi was outstanding, right? 20-plus kills, stands out. I think maybe she had 18. And then Morgan Lewis gets a kill, 25 all. Becca Alec gets back 26-25. Kubik makes an error on match point, 26-25. Pukas comes back to get Oregon's set point. 2 in a row blocks from the Huskers to get another match point, but Mimi Collier is there to even it at 28. Kubik makes it 29-28. Pukas evens it. Nunaviller gets the kill to go up 1, but a service error ties it at 30. And then Lewis and Nunaviller go back to back. And John Cook was honest. He said, we had ourselves in a position to win. We didn't. And Oregon was just the much better team, going from, 6-4 to 13-4 in that 5th set, just a 7-0 run. That was, it was attack error filled, right? There were 4 attack errors in that stretch from Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just is something that happens. I've been in a ton of these matches, and there's never a reason why this happens. It just happens. And you can say, well, that wasn't very good. No, this is the intensity of the play, the way that both teams were scrapping for every point. They didn't back off. You remember what Mimi Collier told us? She said, I believe you have to swing if you're going to win. That's what she told us when we interviewed her during the season. And she had several opportunities to do that. She hit a nice shot on the first one, and I just thought, Mimi, do you remember what you told us? But the next time she got a chance to swing, she went for it all out. So it's pretty interesting to watch how the kids follow through with what they say when it gets to showtime,
It's special too, and they're gonna face off against Louisville, Oregon, Louisville. The Cardinals were tested a little bit at the end of that first set, a couple key blocks, and then they were able to get a kill at 24-23. But after that, it was smooth sailing for the number 1 seed. Not a lot of people expected Louisville to have trouble, if according to what I hear, and what I think and what we think, right? And they haven't. And they swept their way through Stanford, Purdue, and now Baylor. And it's the early game, 4:00 Eastern time on ESPNU on Saturday the 10th, regardless of whether it's tomorrow or today when you're watching. Do you see Oregon? Where do you see them attacking Louisville? I guess I'll ask you that.
Well, I think they're always going to try to go at the middles right away. They're going to go at the middles. They're going to use their outsides, but not overuse them early. They want to score the ball. Louisville has to keep Oregon off the net. If they can keep them off the net, they'll have a very, very good chance. But if Oregon can attack middle, then it's going to be an interesting match.
Well, while we sit here halfway done, Mick and I had some picks, and we're sitting there. No, we did pretty well. You got 6 right. I got 7 right. So I'm up here with 1 more point. Regardless of how you want to talk about the tiebreaker, I was pretty good with my set guesses. 5 of the 8, I got the sets right in, and you got a couple of them, 3 of the 8. And so now, as we talk about sticking with your guns here, I'll ask you this before we get to the West Coast. I'm going to save Madison for last, but before we get to the West Coast, are you changing your opinions about any team down south in California after watching them play against Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm very pleased that USD got out of their funk, and I really mean that. Their top 3 scorers really brought it, and that's what I wanted to see again. I hadn't seen that for 3 weeks, and boy, Billy McGillis has just given me the business.
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a second. Here it is. So Bill McGillis, a fan of ours, he's been tweeting with us all year. Great guy, associate vice president and the executive director of athletics at USD. Can't wait to meet you, Bill, in Omaha if it works out. But we've gone back and forth a little bit. He saw that I shouted out USD last week. I was confident they would storm through Palo Alto and obviously first start with Kentucky. That was a head-to-head duel. So he tweets, "Happy birthday, Daniel." Appreciate it. That was a fun Thursday. You called it, and I know that USD brought a smile to your face. Go Toreros. And then it follows up with me asking if we'll see him in Omaha if all goes well on Saturday. And he said, we'll be having a steak dinner on Mick if that gets done.
Well, nothing would be more exciting for me to have USD be there, because I think they would be a fan favorite. I think they would be a crowd pleaser. I think they add to the tournament. But boy, that giant killer up there in Palo Alto, those kids are big, and they've got their big middle back. And now can they do it? Houston made them look pretty normal for about 20 points in the first set. And then for some reason, Houston just seemed to me to quit playing. Now I can give Stanford credit, say Stanford kicked it up and brought it, but I just thought the moment got too big. Houston had that first set. They might have been thinking about the second set before they finished it out. Stanford comes back and wins after they're down 20-10 or 20-12 there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so Sammy Francis returned. She had little effect, but Kendall Kipp once again had herself a massive stat line, 19-2-36 with 6 digs and 3 blocks for K squared over there, and Rubin added 12 kills. But it was the first set, right? It was all the momentum with the underdogs, and a 15-10 lead ballooned to 18-10, stretched to 20-13, 21-13 was when the run started, and Stanford would go on a 5-0 run and then ultimately a 10-1 run to take the lead at 23-22. A service error tied it, and then they went back and forth into extra points where Francis and eventually a dump by Minor wound up winning the set for Stanford. San Diego Stanford is going to be one of those matches that you're going to have to make sure you got some caffeine in you. 10 o'clock Eastern time, locked in. Paul Sunderland, the voice of volleyball over the last decade, on the call. It'll certainly be a fun one. Where are you pointing to in terms of how you stop Kendall Kipp if you're San Diego?
Well, San Diego can slow Kipp down. They put up a pretty good block. They're not small, but they play really good defense. And I think their middle back defense will do a little bit better than what we've seen some of the other people doing with Kipp. And if Froiling can get close to being in front of Kipp, that's really going to be a matchup that's interesting. I think the freshman for Stanford, though, is the one that just seems to be coming on here, and she was very confident in this match with Houston. Yeah, Rubin has been a real plus and real positive and a leader kind of player as a freshman. Not silent, not worried about errors, very, very aggressive. That's one that San Diego can't let go off. But the other way to ask that question is, how is Stanford going to stop San Diego?
And that's the fun part. I saw a lot of people on Twitter kind of buzzing about how San Diego, you assume, is going to be this swift, short, scrappy team. And no, they just punish you. They've got the Indiana transfers, right? Blackwell, and they've got Grace Froling. And of course, Gabby Blossom, the region player of the year in the Pacific South. We've got a lot to talk about them next week, regardless win or lose. I'm excited for us to break that one down. We finished it, though, in Madison, where our friend Sam Gore was on the call. And he started with a match that looked like it could have gone to the wire, but Courtney Bizzario and Rachel Fairbanks, she really stepped up in that fourth set to pull Pittsburgh away from Florida.
I told you Fairbanks was the one that was really coming on, and she's a competitor. And it'll be interesting to see how she stacks up against this Wisconsin crew, because this is going to be a real battle. The numbers put these two almost even.
And I agree. And this was that one matchup that I was kind of, going back and forth about in the beginning of the week, because 2 weeks ago I said my pick for the Final Four was Pittsburgh coming out of the top right. Wisconsin made me feel good about that with what they did against Penn State at the end. Where did you see? I don't know. We got to ask someone a little bit more comfortable with the Badgers program. I'm not quite sure what happened there to flip that switch, but it felt like the momentum just died in the middle of that fourth set.
They've done that the last couple of years. You've seen various times late
happened against Florida 2 years ago.
Yeah. It just kind of leaves, and that's what I was worried about with San Diego, and that's what I was worried about with Ohio State, that they couldn't get that mojo going again. And when it leaves after you start with it, though, that's a problem, because that just means who's leading and who's going to take the ball and score it. I mean, that's the deal. So here's the deal on this Pittsburgh match: mismatches. Yeah, if Schreck gets over the Pittsburgh left side,
but you got Valeria Gomez. She was looking like she had some size to her as well, and of course, the one thing Penn State didn't have in that was a terminal threat at the end. Right? It was like Cash Williams just couldn't get the swings. She took 57 swings and had 14 kills with 15 errors. And in the fifth set, you need someone that can just get you a kill to get you out of a rut. And for Anna Schmeck to come out there and put together what was clearly one of those historical service runs. And if you don't remember, it was the fifth set, and Schmeck comes out at 1-1 after an attack error by Williams, and she goes ace, basically an ace. It was a kind of a ball handling error by Elisaya, and then another error, and then Hart and Robinson, and it's 6-1, and it's basically a landslide at that point. And Penn State didn't have that one person that could get him out of that.
Yeah, and that's always the key. That's why I say a Londot, Kip, you know, you got those players that will lead you by taking the ball and getting it done. That's what you're looking at when you get in these matches. And that's what Nebraska didn't have, incidentally, late there. They didn't have that one player that would just say, just get me the ball and let me swing. And so, you know, that's what everybody's looking for when we get down to trying to determine the top four. And so it'll be interesting, I think.
How about Caroline Crawford, right? She broke her pinky in early November, had surgery, and had 13 blocks, 3 of them in the fifth set. Danielle Hart, everyone loves talking about her story, but I don't think Crawford is as recognized. And Ashburn as well. Everyone doubted the serving and the setting this season for Wisconsin, losing all of that comfort. And obviously Sydney Hilly, and the serving and the setting have been pretty good. And Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, 8 o'clock, prime time. It's going to be good. All these matches are going to be really good, Mix. And now we can look big picture. I'm gonna press you to some picks again. We're going to do this. I'm up 1 point on you. We're going to keep count. Walk me through your 4.
Texas wins over Ohio State.
Shocker.
Probably going away, but I don't think Ohio State's ready to allow that to happen. I think you're going to see Louisville win over Oregon, and that could be 3-0.
Is your final? Is that your final?
Yeah, that's getting Louisville to the Final Four. Yes, and I have to go with Wisconsin at home because you mentioned serving and those kinds of things, and it is a lot easier to serve in a comfortable environment, and that's pretty comfortable for them, not so for the opponents. But Pittsburgh will grovel. They'll get in there and fight. The one that I will go back and change my mind on now is San Diego, because I do think they proved to me that they can come back and play the way that they played mid-season. I just think they just needed to be challenged. Now they go in as the underdog against Stanford. Don't let USD be the underdog. They will try to prove you wrong, and they will play extremely hard. So I think I like their style of play a little bit better. I know there's some elite kids on the Stanford team, but I like USD right from the get-go when they play like this. It's when they lost their mojo and just kind of played behind all the time and made errors that bothered me when I was watching them there in November.
This is tough for me. I love my Louisville, Pittsburgh. I'm keeping locked in with those. I'm holding strong on San Diego. Will the Big Ten be shut out from the Final Four? That's the question. And I'm going to go on record and say that they will not. And Ohio State is going to come out of Austin. And we're going to lock that in. Final Jeopardy, final answer. That really would throw a wrench into things. Ohio State, San Diego. Holy moly. Sign me up for Thursday night.
A lot of things, yeah.
That would be fun. Now, the question is, there's got to be a team that everyone that is in the area is going to root for, because we know that Nebraska fans love volleyball, and they will be in Omaha on December 15, 16, 17. But who's going to be the team they pick? Louisville is a likable team. Pittsburgh, likable. Wisconsin, Oregon, likable. You know, there's like Ohio State, San Diego. San Diego would be the favorite, right, in terms of fan support. Stanford, not so much, right?
So much.
That's what I'm saying. There's teams. There's only a few. You kind of look at it like the World Cup. We had a crazy day at the World Cup today on Friday, and you could tell that some fans were just rooting for the underdog sometimes. And the underdog, don't count them out. There's always that one team in the Final Four that sneaks their way in. Could it be Ohio State? Could it be San Diego? Unrecognized by the committee, because I talked to a football person recently and I talked to them in football terms and I walked them through the San Diego versus Stanford seed debate. And in their opinion, it was not even close. San Diego deserved that seed if you did a blind resume kind of thing. And you know that the Toreros are going to come in with a little chip. The question is, can Stanford get fans?
Yeah, I've been just amazed at the not filling Maples Pavilion. I mean, how can you be in Northern California and have your team plan like this and not take every seat and get over there?
Well, it's going to be rainy too, very rainy this weekend. No, I'm serious though, because I know it's affecting the 49ers game. I'm going to get rain, so that could definitely drive down attendance even more. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, it's too bad, but there'll be a lot of people watching on TV. I'll tell you that.
ESPNU, get there. We'll chat with you on Monday. We'll have 4 teams left to dissect. Cannot wait for it. Send us your picks for the final 4 teams. Maybe throw in a couple guesses of what you think might happen. How many 5-setters might there be? Mick, what do you think? 1 or 2?
Well, characteristically not. 1 at the most.
Give me 3. 3 5-setters. Optimistic and hopeful as we send you off. Enjoy your weekend. He's Mick, I'm Daniel, and this is 6 Rotations.